A to B because the currency has just dropped where it's landed and it's carried that currency. That's the history. So why the governor invited me here? I think my son has been talking to him and said, put my father there so people can see somebody with no head for business. After that, however, I'm not competent at all to even comment on the very elaborate keynote speech which we had, but I have 1 or 2 points I think I could usefully elaborate on or caution about. The first thing, however, is what was said by one other speaker about hoping that we move from, the states move from competition to collaboration. No, I think competition is very essential. It's essential, it is healthy. And the two things, in fact, should go together. Competition and collaboration hand in hand. We've got to go back to that sense of feeling I can do it better than my neighboring state, without, of course, encroaching on the facilities of that state or becoming aggressively and unproductively competitive. So I really want to stress the need for the states in this nation to go back to the ethos of healthy competition. It's an ethical mode of development, and of course, collaboration simultaneously. In fact, what I said to the governor, Kaduna, when we spoke briefly, the MC misunderstood. They always do. They said, waiting to talk. I said, look, I'm looking at you, and I'm going to treat you as an economic spy. Now, I'm very glad that our keynote speaker stressed education, but at the same time, I wish to caution about the possible misunderstanding of investment in education. You spoke about education itself as an investment, and that is really the ethical principle of education. You are investing in human material, human resources. Many of our entrepreneurs here, some of whom have moved from agriculture to education, for instance, see education merely as another business. It's a question of returns. I was saying again to the governor here how the quality of education has been deteriorating, and likely because of the proliferation of tertiary institutions without the manpower to actually deal with them and give the pupils, the students, quality, real, not qualitative, but quality education. So, in effect, we're degrading even the investment called education by mindless proliferation of institutions which we cannot man with the necessary intellectual resources. And so many people, when they hear investment education, they say, oh, let me quickly go and ask for a license for another university. But before you know where you are, I was in a state not so long ago, and virtually every other building, every other shack on that street, I won't say what state, was either a technological institute, a university. I'd never seen so many universities in one street. That's in this very Nigeria. So be very careful, always stress investment in education, not education as a resource, profit resource. Finally, I wish to take this advantage to stress and re-stress what I've always said, that development is impossible with centralist governance. And that is why I'm very happy and very encouraged by an initiative like this and similar initiatives, which in effect says to the center, we're no longer going to wait for you to develop us, because you are responsible for underdeveloping us in the first place. For me, the key word to development, and I say this to all the states, all governors, all houses of assembly, the key word to development, genuine development, especially in a country like this, is genuine federalism, in which the states take their fortune in their hands decide their priorities depending on their resources, and maximize what they have. One of my favorite exercises, as many people know, is rambling in the bush, and with hopeful results here and there. And all the lessons I learned from going deep into the bush have been evidence of the waste of resources when the central government dabbles into things it has no business with. I encounter centrally donated sacks of fertilizers, which are in effect rotting. I mean, such things, but actually rotting in unproductive areas, simply because there's a huge allocation, central allocation for fertilizers, which are then scattered all over the place, irrespective of where they can be utilized, where the farmers actually require them. I remember my late friend Aboade, the economist, used to come back from this round and say, Oje, what are people doing? Who was an advisor at the time? What are all these sacks of fertilizers which I see all over the place? And the rain falls, and of course the bags break and they're scattered all over the place. When you're talking about agriculture, you're talking about a decentralized, a localized exercise. If the federal government wants to create vast hectares of special agricultural production, maybe wheat, I believe there have been some experiments for production of wheat in certain areas, and that's exactly where they ended. That's a business. Let them use their own, produce their own resources, and invest and gamble with agriculture. But I think states simply have to take over the responsibility of not only feeding their own population, but of creating enough surplus to return this nation to a food-producing, exporting community, not one that has been reduced to importing basic, essential, and unavoidable commodity such as food. So decentralization, for me, is the key, and this is where politics comes in. Maybe tactfully, you didn't want to touch on political conditions for development, but we can, and we say that unless this country is decentralized, even the efforts like this being made will have to undergo the intervention, will have to suffer the intervention of the federal, of the center, in areas where it has no business. When I built, I'm an example, I'm not just preaching theoretically, I'm an example of the decentralized individual. When I decided to come home after I resigned from the university and build my home here, the first thing I did was dig a borehole. The next, I bought a second-hand generator. Till today, I do not rely on the federal grid to supply me electricity, and water has not reached my house since I came back here nearly 20 years ago. Let states imitate my example. I believe you may also stay clear. And not only that, I planted a few patches of here and there, but I'm no business person. Everything rotted in there. So I've given up on that, and all I do is just hunt for my food. That's the only lesson which I have for everybody. Congratulations, Mr. Governor, and good luck.
Thank you so much. As we try and rapidly move on, I'd like to invite the Governor of